She's giving me my countdown. Good afternoon, and welcome to our fourth installment of Chat with Chaplains this week at Memphis Theological Seminary. I am Felicia Levant, and I am one of the admissions associates and recruiters here at MTS. And today our conversation, Monday we spoke with chaplains in the area of healthcare. Yesterday we spoke with chaplains in the area of criminal justice. And today we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with chaplains in the military and armed forces. We have, I will allow them to introduce themselves according to my screen. That would be Garrett Burns and John Smith, Chaplain Jefferson, and then Chaplain Watkins. So I will allow them to introduce themselves, and then we will proceed with the conversation. We encourage you, if you have any questions or comments in particular, please put them in the Facebook chat comments, and we will be happy to have them to address them. I encourage you to take full advantage of this opportunity and time. Chaplain Burns.
Hey, good morning. I'm Chaplain Garrett Burns. I am a reservist in the Navy. Been in the Navy for, 11 years, and I just kind of getting my feet wet, getting things started. I'm ordained through the Cumberland Presbyterian Church, and I work full-time at Bethel University in McKenzie, Tennessee. Glad to be here.
I'm Chaplain John Smith. I'm a reservist in the Air Force. I've been in since 2009, and I'm an IMA reservist stationed at Little Rock, Arkansas. But I live here. I pastor two churches. I'm ordained through the Presbyterian Church USA, and I pastor a church in Dickerson, Tennessee, and Waco, Tennessee.
Welcome. Chaplain Jefferson.
Right, good afternoon. I'm Chaplain Takana Jefferson. I have been in the military a total of 28 years, active duty, 10 years active duty as a Navy chaplain. I've served with the Marines twice, Coast Guard once, as well as with the Navy. I'm currently the Naval Support Activity Command Chaplain here in Washington, D.C., and I am non-denominational chaplain endorsed by a coalition of Spirit-filled churches.
Chaplain Watkins.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Diana Watkins Dickerson. I am a military chaplain in the United States Air Force. More specifically, I serve at the 164th Airlift Wing here in Memphis, Tennessee. So I am a National Guard chaplain, more specifically. I've enjoyed a career since 2009 when I joined through the chaplain candidate program. I've been in the chaplaincy the entirety of my career, my entire career. And I'm just looking forward to the conversation. So thank you for having me. I also have an assistant here. So.
That's what I was going to ask. Who is your assistant today?
My assistant, this is Dion Dickerson. She's going to help me answer some of these questions today.
Wonderful. Because one of the questions I'm sure we'll get to is, how does one balance family life and military chaplaincy? And so I want to open the conversation with questions, because all of you clearly have served for a number of years. Is it possible for one to go straight into the military as a chaplain, or does one have to come in at, I don't know these terms, but at another level, as a what?
I guess I'll go first, since no one else unmuted. To become a Navy chaplain, I can't speak for the other branches, but to become a Navy chaplain, you have to go through the CCPO program, which is a chaplain candidate officer program. So there are a certain number of requirements to come in. So you have to definitely have your Master of Divinity degree. You have to have a certain amount of time in ministry and things along that line in order to be able, and then it's not automatic. Okay, so at that point, you may have to go, your package goes before a care board. On this care board is usually a chaplain, and then the rest are line officers. You are then interviewed by those officers to ask a number of questions to see your knowledge and see how well you will do as a chaplain, because not only are you a chaplain, but you're also a naval officer at that time. And so there's a certain amount of leadership, there's a certain amount of responsibility and autonomy that comes with that. And they have to make sure that you that you are aware of these things and that you're capable of being able to assume that role. And once your package is approved, and you go to chaplain school. We also have officer development school, which is actually first, and then you have chaplain school, which is like, I think, 8 weeks. And so then once you complete all of that, then you're assigned your first duty station. Whether you go active duty, then you have two options, to active duty or reserve. Not everyone comes on active duty. Even in chaplain school, sometimes people are not allowed to come on active duty. They're automatically shifted to the reserve. So it just depends. It just depends.
Okay, so the term came to me, rank. So is it possible, though, for someone to already be in a branch of the armed forces and a private or some other rank, and then they sense the calling to chaplaincy? You can't come in at another rank and earn your degree while you're in the armed forces? No?
I mean, that depends. There's been certain exceptions made for certain people, but typically, they would prefer that because you're going to an officer rank. So it's a whole different from being enlisted, which is what you would call a private, but it's different for the Navy. So being from an enlisted to an officer. So there are certain wickets, but yes, if you want to go to school while you're in the military, earning whatever degree you need to earn online, because I think they're trying to make more exceptions now for online a little bit. So as long as you're able to complete the degree, there are other requirements that, again, I hate to say give one standard, because I've seen exceptions in certain areas. So, but typically, that would be a hard no. There's a process they would like for you to complete. I mean, same thing with me. I came as E1, undesignated airman. Okay, so when I worked my way up and decided that I wanted to become a chaplain, I had to complete the process. I had to get my MDiv. First and foremost, I had to be ordained. I forgot about that part. I got to be ordained within a ministry. I had to serve in leadership, pastor, something. There are certain requirements that come with that because of the role of being an officer. You're more than a pastor. There's a certain, it's about balance in both, because if you look at my uniform, you'll see a cross and you'll see my rank, and it's learning about how do I balance the two. So that comes through training. So I hope that answered your question. Garrett, you're more than welcome to add to it.
I was going to ask Garrett and Chaplain Watkins, did you all go straight into the process as chaplains, and did you already have MDivs, or did you come in at another rank or in another capacity?
So as Chaplain Jefferson shared, part of the process is, as you're discerning that call to chaplaincy, usually that first entry point can be the chaplain candidate program, or if you already have an MDiv and you are already ordained and you're discerning a call to chaplaincy, you can go directly to officer development school. But if you're like me, and I was brand new, I had just enrolled in seminary, like my first semester, that's when my commissioning began. And I was commissioned as a CCPO, or chaplain candidate program officer, as she shared earlier. And they allowed me the time to go to seminary. The Navy does not provide any financial support for that for chaplains, but they allowed me the time to go to seminary. And then in usually the summertime or like a winter quarter, I was able to go and get some training out of the way. And she shared those phases of training, the officer development school, then there's chaplain school, which I just finished after 10 years. So it can be a long process. And for my case, I was serving churches during that time. There is a requirement that you, one, be ordained, but two, that you have, within our denomination, I think it's becoming a standard, that you have 2 years of ordained ministry experience before you can go active duty and receive that endorsement. So the timeline for me was, I started seminary and then I started training. I had 3 years till I finished my MDiv, then I was ordained. Then I had 2 years after ordination to have ordination experience. So that was a minimum of 5 years that I stayed as a reservist in the individual ready reserve, not the reservist capacity I'm in right now, to be used as a chaplain candidate. There's a lot of language. You have to learn a whole new language when you join the military, and each branch has their own lingo as well. But that's just sort of the front end for a lot of students who are beginning to discern this call. It can begin right away. And our age requirement is up to 42 years of age. But as she shared earlier, there are waivers for that. I had a chaplain that I just trained with that was 50 years old at chaplain school. They gave him a waiver because of his ministerial experience and because of his physical health. So it just really depends on your situation.
That's encouraging, Garrett, because I recall when we were in seminary, you and I were here together. But I recall someone, you remember Hattie, she was interested in the chaplaincy program, but they were talking about age limitation. So it is good to know, as both you and Chaplain Jefferson have expressed, that there can be exceptions. I have been saying all week that to people that I'm convinced that when God calls one to an assignment, God works out the details. God is not limited to man's rules and regulations. And I know the military is very firm. However, again, God can work that out. So has that been your experience also, Chaplain Watkins, as far as going straight into the chaplaincy program, or is the Air Force different?
So it's pretty much standardized around the services, right? A note to that. So there are particular regulations and rules for each branch, right? Bless you. But we all fall under the Department of Defense as well, right? So there are regulations that we have to know and be aware of according to that. And so for us, I've seen folks like the other chaplains have shared that may have been enlisted and decided, hey, I have this calling on my life and I'd like to go forth and get into the chaplain candidate program, or on my own time, complete my Master of Divinity, or an equivalent, which could be 72 hours. So that's the requirement according to the AFI, and that's Air Force instruction, right? That it's 72 hours from an accredited seminary. Now, that could be an MDiv, but there are some denominations that don't necessarily, quote unquote, ordain members or ministers. So it can be a little bit different. I also want to stress for the Air Force, you don't necessarily have to be ordained. The word or the verbiage is endorsed. And so there are so many different denominations that you can be endorsed with. I'm endorsed by the African Methodist Episcopal Church, but at first I was endorsed by the National Baptist Convention, USA Incorporated, which is different. That's why I say the entire thing. And some endorsers might endorse women, for example, for chaplaincy, whereas they don't ordain them. So it really can depend on your individual experience. I joined through the chaplain candidate program. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a JAG officer, learned about a program for law school. So I was going to do the JDM div, the whole thing, right? And God was like, don't waste your money, don't waste your time. So with that being said, I said, okay, that's pretty clear. For law school, that's a hard pass. I'm thankful that that's not how I ended up as a chaplain, but I went through the chaplain candidate program, which I think is a consistent theme here. And with that can have different requirements sometimes than coming straight off of the street, right? Or coming if you were prior enlisted. I've seen folks that went to the Citadel, for example, and they were commissioned. I think they were in 03, 04, or promotable 03. Well, because of the chaplain candidate program, the rule says you begin as a second lieutenant. And so they had to lose rank and start over. They earned it back after they finished the program. So it really can depend. Now, that's the Air Force. Is that, the same rule all the time? Maybe it can depend. But once again, I think for the most part, the requirement is 72 hours at an accredited university. Also, the other chaplains mentioned pastoral experience. Many times you'll see the difference in pastoral experience between someone who goes to the reserves or the Guard versus active duty. And that's when they really want to foot stomp you having that pastoral leadership experience. For example, I didn't have that. Coming from a denomination that did not ordain women consistently, and then moving into a denomination that did, that was a huge difference, right? And I found a lot of that leadership experience once I became ordained in the AME church, but also just in leadership positions on base. We're officers as well as chaplains. And our role is not just to preach and to pray, but to also advise leadership according to our regulations. So I hope that's a little bit helpful as well, my perspective.
Extremely. And so what I've heard across the board is the requirement for endorsement by your faith tradition or some denomination. One of the things we talked about the other day with the healthcare one is that depending upon your faith tradition, there's the, as far as now, this is one thing that came up. So you all don't require any board certification, right? You do or do not? Okay, so you don't have to be the APC or any of that, that criteria.
No, actually, you do not. In the Navy, I don't know about the Air Force, but in the Navy, they offer an opportunity on active duty if you want to go to CPE, clinical pastoral education, 1 year. And then it's like a payback. You give them some time back. But yes, you can actually do that. So it is not a requirement. I do know that it has been talked about, highly recommended that people at least take a 1 unit of CPE prior to coming in, which I highly recommend. So if you are board certified, that's the better, because it's not the same as pastoring the church at all by any means. And so I think that CPE helps people, to work through that and make them more effective.
Well, one of the reasons I asked, because that was an issue that came up in our conversation on with the healthcare chaplains, is that because they do require the board certification. And so, however, in our region in Memphis right now, there are no hospitals doing the 1 unit anymore. Because they were saying because of a shortage of educators. And so the only thing they're offering is the 4 units. So that's why it's encouraging to hear that there are other avenues that one could pursue chaplaincy that does not necessarily require the certification. And I say that only because we hear all the time people saying, well, it's hard to find opportunities, it's hard to get in, we can't get the CPEs and that type of thing. But as I said on yesterday, my understanding, or the way that it appears to me as a recruiter who talks to people all the time, is that sometimes we have to take God out of the box and stop thinking that I can only be a chaplain in a certain area. So speaking of only being a chaplain in a certain area, I can't speak for everybody else, but some of us are afraid of the thought of the military, having to go over and fight and all that other kind of active duty. So what can you all say that could make a person who's sensing a call to chaplaincy, to care for, to lead, to do, fulfill those roles that a chaplain normally fulfills, but who are military averse because of the fear of being sent to Guam or overseas somewhere? What can you all say that could?
Guam is a great assignment. What do you mean?
Okay, go ahead.
No, but the thing is, we all are not called to go.
Yeah, well, I think. Yeah, well, it depends on your branch. Again, I think first of all, chaplains aren't fighting anybody because we're non-combatants. We're not fighting people. We don't have time to fight people. We have religious program specialists who basically, they work for us, and those are our bodyguards. So, and the only time that in the Navy that you may see any kind of real action to combat is if you're on the ground with the Marines. And that's if they're forward deployed. And that means like with the 20s, the MUs, Marine Expeditionary Units, or certain other units that deploy out. Then you may, high possibility, you may end up over there if you're attached to one of those units. And so you'll go out, but then you're still limited. You're not going to be right out there. And you have religious program specialists who is rifle qual. So they can shoot and take care of you, make sure you're safe. Your Marines will make sure you're safe. But outside of that, I think from a Navy point of view, it's amazing. I don't have to do this. I do this because I want to. Matter of fact, I could have already retired 28 years. I could have quit. But the ability to be able to get out of your comfort zone and travel the world, which I've done, everything from Japan to Guam to you name it, I've been there. And then also the people that you're able to help. Because if that's real, if people are your passion, which, ministry, then I think it is, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to connect in a way and serve in a way that you would not be able to in a church. I really feel that. And so I would say, don't be afraid, spend time, talk to a chaplain. No, we're not out here and on a ship, if you're, and you're not always going to be on a ship either. It's sometimes hard actually to get a ship. So, most of the time you end up in the hospital. There's so many different places that you can end up being that you're not technically in harm's way, but even on the ship is the best opportunity ever. You only have to write your little people on the ship. We shoot stuff from the ship. We send it off the ship. We stay in the water and say good luck to everybody that we send on shore. We'll come back and get you. Jesus saves. And we stay out in the water and we have a great time sailing around, living our best life. You with the Coast Guard, you get to serve with them. Another great, amazing opportunity. You get to catch, well, I'm not going to say that, but you get to have people who catch drug runners. Like, who wouldn't want to do that? Like, come on now, like, exhilarating.
I want to do that, Chaplain. I'm sorry. But now, Chaplain Burns, I remember seeing this summer, you allowed us to follow you on Facebook. You were doing boot camp and some rigorous stuff. So I'm just saying now, wait a minute. Are you all saying that as a chaplain in the armed forces, that one does not get out there in the trenches with the people if they're, at war?
We absolutely will be with them, but that's a part of, it's a theological exercise. We believe Jesus was an expeditionary God that scaled mountains, went across seas. He was in the midst of some of the most dangerous places, so that's been a big change in our language and focus here lately is viewing it in a theological way, speaking truth to power. You see that in scripture, and that's exactly where we're put and inserted in those places. But just on there is a culture of expectation of physical fitness, of maintaining stewardship of your body. Those are important values for the military. So definitely that's one you really need to, if you don't have it, you need to desire to have it, because it's going to come with the territory. But some of the best, I've been told, some of the best chaplains are the ones with the pastor's heart. They don't come in for the power or for the rank. They're there because they love the people. Just as Chaplain Jefferson said, they know that the people in the midst of these environments need someone to take care of them. And those are the ones that usually make the better chaplains, that aren't there to really fight the battle, to be on the front line shooting the guns, but to be with the people who are, and to help their soul in the midst of that.
Okay. Chaplain Burns, I think that's really good. A few questions ago, we talked about CPE. And I remember applying after I finished divinity school. I applied for CPE. I was like, I'm not going to get a job without CPE. I'm not going to be able to work at a hospital. And guess what? On deployment, where was I assigned? The hospital, right? And, I thought, I really do believe God has a sense of humor, because so many people would say, well, you need to have CPE, you need to do this. And well, I've already worked at a hospital, right? And working at a hospital on deployment, you see everything. And when I say everything. And, it's those moments, I think, when you really have to dig down deep and see, what type of minister do I want to be? What sort of chaplain do I want to be? Right. And I have seen, and I'll be honest with this point, I have seen many chaplains that do go in, wanting the rank and wanting the notoriety and the recognition and really being more of a line officer, right, than a professional corps officer. And our job is to advise leadership and to protect folks' religious freedoms. For example, we provide religious accommodation, we don't provide the accommodation, but we do try to make that available if it can be available, right? So as long as you are still, within requirements and mission ready, those accommodations can be made, right? But our job is not necessarily be like, okay, well, I'm an FGO now, and so this is what you need to do, and this is how it's going to be, right? our job really and truly is to be a visible reminder of the holy and to ensure that folks see the spirit and the presence of God in us. That's our job. So whether you're at the hospital, right? And I've been at the hospital, locally as a guard chaplain and also as an active duty chaplain, right? When I've been tasked to active duty. Also, I've visited folks that were in the jail at the base, right? Depending on what they did. So it really can look very, very different. But as long as you are making sure people are reminded of the holy as you go forward, right? And it's not about proselytizing. It's not about, just follow Jesus and you'll be all right. No, it's about really and truly getting to the heart of people. And that's taking on the mind and the heart, or at least what we see in the scriptures of what the heart of God really and truly looks like.
And I
Great.
do want
Now,
to, I'm sorry, I do want to
before
really
you move on, because I don't want to miss a point, she was talking about the religious freedoms and that type of thing. And I'm so excited about the fact that the majority of you are actually Memphis Theological Seminary alums. And so the question I want to ask is, with regards to the religious freedom, how did your MTS experience, knowing that you all having the understanding that MTS is an ecumenical school, we have over 20 denominations represented. And so you would have been in classes with, and then we also have the interfaith cultural requirement that we have. How beneficial was that exposure to various faith traditions beneficial to you in the roles that you serve in now? Because I'm assuming everybody is not necessarily Christian in your fields of where you're serving. Did you find that beneficial to have the ecumenical exposure and experience? Because I was sitting in a Methodist class with Garrett, so I know.
It was essential. And I know MTS has at least 33 denominations that have been present at any given time. But not only Christian denominations, one of the classes that I took at MTS was Christianity and Islam. And it was taught by Nabil Bayakli, who was a local imam there. One of the cool things about chaplain school is that you're trained alongside of imams, of rabbis, of Christian denominations, Catholic priest, Episcopal priest. I had a Buddhist chaplain that came through while I was in the chaplain candidate program. I have 3 rabbi friends who I'm pretty close to. So MTS sort of, I think, coming from a very smaller town, hometown, you're just not as exposed to the ideas and thoughts of other people's as you would be in an urban setting. And so MTS kind of gave me that step forward, preparing me even more for the exposure of diversity of religion and plurality that comes, especially with the military.
Wonderful. Chaplain Watkins or Chaplain Jefferson, would you say that you all have found the same benefit from that experience?
Most definitely. I'm not going to say where I'm currently going to school for my DMin, but however, I wish I came back to MTS. I will preface that. But at the time, they didn't have the program that I needed at that time, but now you do. Anyway, but I say yes. I will say that my best from everything that I've learned from an ecumenical standpoint, especially coming from a Pentecostal tradition, because even though I'm non-denominational, I came out of Church of God in Christ. So, we're only one focus, one way. That was it. And so being able to be exposed to different cultures, different background, being in that ecumenical community, experiencing the Eucharist, learning different terminology and being with others definitely opened my mind when I became a chaplain on active duty. So yes, I feel like I just walk as Jesus walked. You love everyone, regardless of who, what, you don't, whatever. I don't care. And that's what I tell them. I don't care what you believe in. If you worship rocks, let me help you be the best worshiper of rocks you can be. My job is to make sure that you are good all the way around. And that's all that matters, and that you know that you're loved.
And so Chaplain Watkins and Chaplain Smith in the Air Force. And I know, Chaplain Smith, where did you do your MDiv work?
I started at MTS, and if everything goes okay, I will be resuming my student status at MPS next fall as a DMin student.
We look forward to it.
But I finished up at Central Theological Seminary in Kansas City. But I would just echo it that multi-faith experience, it's absolutely essential. I had Dr. Biacli too, and that he was kind of my first experience with an imam. And since then, though, being in the military, I have close colleagues that are imams, and being able to work with them, being able to understand their language a little bit, so I'm not culturally ignorant. I mean, it's huge.
That's awesome. And it's interesting because one of the things I was saying yesterday to the group we were talking about the criminal justice system, and of course, needless to say, in that system, they are exposed to a variety of faith traditions. And Chaplain Jefferson was just talking about Jesus, and Garrett was talking about where Jesus was. And I said to them, if we really want to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, we consider how Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well, nobody else wanted to have anything to do. The first thing she said is, your kind doesn't worship with our kind, your kind. But the reality is, particularly for those of you who are serving in a care responsibility, at the end of the day, people don't care how much we know till they know how much we care. And so all these degrees, I think it's wonderful that they do require you all to have the theological studies and understanding, because as you all have shared, your duties are more than just praying with people and praying over people. You lead services, I'm sure that you probably have even baptized a person or two in your responsibilities, or had to support. And tell me this much: do you all only get involved in supporting the soldiers? Y'all tell me the proper term. Is that correct? The people that you work with, or do you ever get involved with their families? Yes. In any engagement with their families, especially with them being so far from home?
I will say yes. So even though I'm a guard chaplain, I will say, and my assistant here is a little bit upset, but as a guard chaplain, we're really a family, and I would say, become very engaged with people's extended families, right? Whether it's a promotion ceremony, a retirement ceremony, typically folks stay in the guard for a while. But, I've actually, when I had my son 5 years ago, I was going around, I think it was for the mom class or whatever, and ran into a pilot. His wife had just had a baby. And so I, said, okay, well, your room is like right on the way to my room pre-COVID. And of course, I spoke and offered congratulations, right? Because he said, hey, you're Chaplain, I know you. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't remember him without his name tag. That's typically what happens, right? But it was such a blessing to be identified, but to be able to share in that sweet moment, right? Conversely, I've had times where I've done funerals. Those are the harder moments, right? And you are not necessarily, it's not necessarily the same thing as pastoring in the civilian context, but people do see you as their pastor, right? And it really means something when you're asked to do a funeral, when you're asked to do a wedding, or a baby dedication, or a baptism, or something of that sort. You do essentially become that person's pastor. And there are ways in which we form relationships that are just so much different than in a civilian context. One of my best girlfriends is actually a Navy chaplain, and she's told me about all of her adventures. I'm somewhat jealous, Chaplain Jefferson. I'll go on ahead and say that, because she's deployed with the Marines. She's deployed with the Coast Guard.
We're still hiring.
No, ma'am. So here's the thing. I don't do water. Okay. I did think about it, but I don't do water. And then just sharing with other chaplains, just the experiences that we've had to really and truly pour into other folks' families, their friends, and to really stand in the gap for folks. Once again, being that visible reminder of the holy.
Speaking of which, some of us watch too much TV. So when in the event of someone dies, one of the soldiers die, are you the ones that would reach out to the family and to deliver that news, or does that come through some other?
That can depend. So unfortunately, I'm a little bit fresh on this. And so there's a death notification team, and it just depends on, and Chaplain Jefferson can speak to this probably a little bit differently, but there's a team, and there's typically a FAR, they're basically a family representative. There is a member of the chaplain corps, and member, right? And from FSS, which is essentially our administrative arm. And so we go together. You're always dressed in blues according to the AFI, or service dress. I'm in the name of the Army as well, probably the regulation. And your job is not necessarily to do the notification, but your job is to offer pastoral support. And for instance, this past time I did not go, but I have been before. And so, but a member does go and they offer pastoral support. And that pastoral support is not just for the family, but also for the member doing the notification, right? Especially if that's someone from your battalion or your squadron, right? And you knew that person and you're taking on the responsibility to notify the family, that can take a lot out of you, right? So our job is not just to be there for the family, but to also be there for the member.
So is that the experience for you also, Chaplain Smith? And have either of you ever been on those teams, you or Chaplain Burns?
I have, yes. For us, the pastoral support mostly is so everybody fills out a sheet of who gets notified if something were to happen to you. And sometimes there can be multiple people on that list. And those death notifications have to be done at the same time. They can't be done delayed, because if so-and-so finds out before,
right,
so they have to be done. And so sometimes a team will be in place waiting for the second team to arrive at their place so that those death notifications can be done. And a lot of my time, once I had to do a death notification, and the one that we were going to notify was his wife, and we were in town. She was in the same town. But once we got in place, we had to wait about 3 hours for the team to get to his parents' house.
Wow.
They were at a different spot in the country. And during those 3 hours, most of my pastoral care was given to the commander, and the rest of that, mostly the commander, because the rest of the team is pulled from these other agencies. But that commander knew this guy for over a year. He had been staple in his unit. And so that commander's heart is breaking, not in the same way that his wife's heart is going to be breaking, but it's still there. It's still grief. And so you're providing that pastoral support. The chaplains, we never deliver the news.
Okay.
The commander always delivers the news.
Okay, so you don't deliver the news, you're just there for support. Not just there for support, but you are there for support.
Yeah.
One of the questions that has come from Facebook is, since Chaplain Jefferson says that all of you all are hiring, someone asked, do you all hire civilian chaplains? Now, I'm assuming they understand that even if you had a person had chaplaincy experience, they would still have to enlist, right? It's not out. Is it an option to be on the side?
Unless you're a Catholic priest, and we hire you from a standpoint as a contract priest.
Okay.
So other than that, then you go through the process. And as Garrett talked about, yes, you do have to be physically fit. So I don't know if you can see, but on my chest is the Fleet Marine Forces pin, and that's something that the Navy Chaplain Corps really puts a lot of emphasis on now, as far as your next promotion. And that they want you to, so that this pin means I've done the same exercises as the Marine Corps. So I passed their PFT or PFA, or the physical assessment test. I did the same amount of push-ups, ran the 3 miles instead of our regular 1.5 mile. Everything they did is plus Marine Corps knowledge. I learned more than Marines learned. I'm asking them questions. They didn't even know the answer. I didn't know about that. Never learned that. So, and then you go before a board. So physical fitness, you have to stay on it. You're tested twice a year, every 6
I was going
months.
to ask that question because I had a
Matter of
friend
fact,
who was in
November
the Navy.
16th, I got to go in there and get my weight and go out here and do my exercises.
So it's not a one-time thing. You
no,
all have to
ma'am.
stay
It's twice a
physically
year.
fit.
Yes, ma'am. It's twice a year.
I'm already eliminated.
So, so yes, there are requirements from a physical standpoint. So you definitely got to take care of your body, but you still got to go through the same process far as endorser, because you got to have an endorser that's approved by the military. It just can't be some random endorser. It has to be one that's approved by the military, and then all the rest of the wicked. So the best thing to do is I can, get in touch with a recruiter, which I know one personally. So if anyone is interested, again, in serving in the world's finest Navy, just let me know.
Wow, she is on the job today. And then we actually have someone who has given us their contact information, and we would love to, I ask on each of the sessions, are you all willing to be available for people to reach out to you? But one of the other questions that has come up is, how has chaplaincy changed for you all during COVID?
I don't have the perspective that Chaplain Jefferson, well, any of the other chaplains that have, because I don't have the longevity that they've had.
Mm-hmm.
But just speaking to the immediate concerns and hearing what I'm hearing throughout the branches, the biggest thing right now is religious accommodations, as Chaplain Watkins has brought up with the COVID-19 vaccination mandate. That is an order that has been given to all of our soldiers and sailors and servicemen to get vaccinated. Because of that, we have many who have some religious objections to it, and maybe some who are taking advantage of the religious accommodation process in order to get exceptions. That part of our job as chaplains is to interview them, and which I did one just this morning, as a matter of fact, to interview, to gauge their religious sincerity, to see how their convictions, whether they're sincere about that, to see that they have an actual religious organization that they're representing those beliefs, and then submitting that to our commanding officers in order to be vetted or approved based upon whether that is a sincere religious accommodation. So the biggest thing right now, I know a lot of my chaplain peers are swamped with these requests.
Wow.
And they're going through interviews after interviews, listening, and so the ones that I haven't had one interview yet that's been really inauthentic. They've been very sincere concerns about having to take the vaccine. So that's been a lot of the work, and I can't speak to other variables right now, but I know other chaplains can.
I'm going to go ahead. Let me go ahead and I'm going to say this regarding religious accommodations. That it goes above us. So I'm only like that goes to the CNO. That is not for, again, the chaplains or even the commanding officer to make the answer on. So that's all I'm gonna say on religious accommodations. All right. But
you all are involved in the evaluation process.
We are involved in it. We are involved. We do the initial interview. We write up the chaplain memorandum. We put in our input and our insight, the sincerity part. We do all of that. There are just some things, there's a lot that goes around this particular vaccine. So therefore, because of that, that's all I'm saying. We're going to stop it right there. But I will say, I think the biggest thing is seeing that, people, which I kind of foresaw once we were required to be locked indoors.
Mm-hmm.
For those who are extroverts, they struggle with being inside. So we had a higher rate of suicide ideations as well as completed suicides because they just could not take being alone. We've had more child abuse cases. We've had more domestic violence issues because, again, a lot of people get married sometimes for the wrong reason, and or they don't realize they didn't really like their spouse until they're stuck in a house with them for 12 months, and then they realize this isn't where it's at. And so I find myself doing a lot more pastoral counseling regarding family relations and things of that nature. So I think it kind of magnified a lot of issues that may have been underlying. And so we're dealing with also people being separated from their families not being able to go home. We still, depending on your location, if you're not vaccinated, you have to ROM, or you may not be able to go certain places. Then we have different levels of travel and things of that nature. So you may not be able to go home and spend the holidays with your family and things of that nature. And so that begins to bring on more pressure. So you see a lot more depression and things of that nature. So I think that's why it's also good, which is not mandatory, but I have found it beneficial since I've been in the chaplain corps, that I went to a mental health for chaplaincy program. And so it has allowed me to be able to assist. I'm not replacing mental health providers by no means, but it allows me to be able to assist in mindfulness and evidence-based practices to be able to help them to kind of cope, because they're having PTSD from what they've experienced during that moment and through COVID, and trying to get back to some form of normalcy.
With that in mind, Chaplain Jefferson, the question that comes to mind for me is then, do you all, as far as support is concerned, is your support relegated to just those who are actively in the armed forces? When a person, you were talking about PTSD and all of that, when they leave, then do they go on to the VA for support, or?
Yes. So the program that I was in actually has connected me with the VA chaplains, because it was a combination of it for VA chaplains as well as active duty chaplains. So it's really cool. So yes, so what we have created within our link is that as an active duty chaplain, I actually would contact another chaplain, a staff chaplain at the VA, and kind of give them a heads up and kind of get that connection made and started so that they can transfer on. That's what I've been doing. I'm not saying that it's standard, but yes, that VA is there for our veterans to be able to get that help through the hospital there. And chaplains, they have wonderful VA chaplains. They're phenomenal.
Wonderful.
If
Chaplain
I could piggyback,
Smith, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
If I could piggyback off of what Chaplain Jefferson said, I think it's a great point. I do think in this public forum, we probably do want to stay away from all of the widgets in the accommodation process. I mean, I think we've given you kind of an overview because it's like that meme, right? It's above me now, right? And so with that being said, this is higher than my pay grade, right? Or at least where I'm stationed at this point. But to that, I think during this pandemic, we want to probably foot stomp though to that. The same things that you'll see on the civilian side, you see them in the military, but sometimes they're more, sometimes they're I guess they're a bit more accentuated because of what we do, right? And so divorce in the military is not like divorce necessarily in the civilian sector. It's, when you are at a really, really high ops tempo, right? If you're deploying, every, let's say 2 years, right? Or some people deploy a lot more depending on your AFSC or whatever your job is in the various branches, that can look very, very different. And your home life obviously is going to be affected. Chaplain Jefferson mentioned a certification that she received, and there are other certifications. So I wanted to bring that up. She mentions a great one. I'm sure that there are several that you can do within Navy chaplaincy, within Army chaplaincy, but also in Air Force chaplaincy. There are several agencies that we work with. And one of the things that we do, particularly in the Guard, I know that active duty is taking this on, but Guard in the Army and the Air Force, we do Strong Bonds. And Strong Bonds is essentially a program that helps in family readiness and in supporting the member as well as their families, right? So we are tasked to directly support the member or approved DoD dependents, right? And so what that might look like, for example, a family readiness program such as Strong Bonds, we have different events that can take place all over the city, or that can be approved to be outside of the city, where we support those families with resiliency tools. And some of that could just be great communication skills, right? That is probably top 3 in why people get divorced or why they have issues in the first place, right? It's just breakdowns in communication. One of the other things I want to foot stomp on the side of through COVID is that because gathering has been kept at a minimum, not just the civilian statutes, but also federally, we sometimes are not able to give all of those benefits as we used to. So that will say that that's one way that ministry has changed. But just because COVID is here doesn't mean that people still don't need you. Doesn't mean that people still aren't getting sick from other means, still aren't having deaths in their family or experiencing death close to them, right? So ministry has to keep going on, and the mission always continues, right? We like to say people first, mission always in the Air Force. And so at the end of the day, our responsibility is to the mission, right? So as a chaplain, you have your endorser, but you also have the mission of the military, right? And so when that happens, and this is for all military members, whether it's a regulation or your personal belief, you're true to the mission. We put up that right hand and we swear or solemnly affirm that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the officers appointed above us, right? And so our job is toward making sure the mission is taken care of, as long as those religious rights and freedoms are defended. That's part of our job, but we always still have to think of the mission.
Wonderful. I have 8 minutes. I have 4 people. So I want to give each of you 2 minutes to say, is there anything in particular that you would like to offer as encouragement, or for a person who's on the fence of trying to decide if this is what they might be interested in doing or might sense a call to doing? And I'll start with Chaplain Burns, Chaplain Smith. I'm going according to my screen, Chaplain Jefferson, and Chaplain Watkins. Now I know all of you are preachers, so therefore, don't go over your 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
I got you, and I'm going to give them some time. If God is God, if you feel God is calling you now and you're beginning this process, it's a long time. I was 14 years old when I wanted to be a Navy chaplain. I became a plank owner for a JROTC unit. From 14 years old to 33 years old, whenever this past summer, it's a long time. If you feel God is calling you now, persist and walk and wait on the Lord, and he will provide. And by the time you get there, it'll be affirmed. So just wait. I mean, in the meantime, just wait on the Lord and he'll provide. And I'm done.
All right, Chaplain Smith.
Same. What I would say is, do it. If you sense the call, do it. I love being a chaplain. Yeah, I love everything that I've ever done. Sometimes the bureaucracy and the paperwork can get to you, but for the most part, 90% of the job is absolutely amazing. Helping airmen, helping their leadership, serving with them. It's amazing. It's worth it. The adventure is awesome. So do it. That's what I would say. Do it.
Adventure, yeah, I'm sure that's a big part of it. All right, Chaplain Jefferson.
All right, you know I'm gung-ho. All right. So
2 minutes, Chaplain Jefferson.
I got it. I got this. If people are your passion, and being able to provide that encouragement, to be able to lift others up and support, be able to advise commanders and leadership, to be a ministry of presence. Just sometimes it's not even what you say. It's just you being there and being with them as Jesus was with everyone. Again, not about proselytizing, not about, everybody knows you're a chaplain, you're wearing the cross, but just being there in the moment with them when you have to dedicate a baby who's just died and the mother is grieving, when you have to go provide a notification to a mother whose Georgian cadets have just passed away, killed in a head-on car crash during spring break. You realize that all of the bureaucracy and all of the things that you go through for those moments like that, of just being able to be there and for them to have a shoulder, to have someone to know that they love and care about them and are there for them, it is worth every penny of it. Is worth every moment, sweat and tear of what you have to do to be able to wear the cross. Small price to pay to be in the world's finest Navy.
Have mercy. Chaplain Watkins and Deanna.
Well, Deanna is asleep, thankfully.
Okay.
So she's not going to give her 22 cents. But
okay.
I will say that the other chaplains have stated it very well. And the only thing I would add on to is that it's not about you, right? It's not about you. And there are some missions that I've been on I didn't necessarily want to go on. Some maybe I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. Some maybe I just was uncomfortable in general. Some, whatever the case may be. And some I was a little bit anxious about, but God always provides. And if you remember that it's not about you, right? And that it's about pressing toward the mark of the high calling and doing what it is God has called you to do. As each one of them has said, God makes provision. And I would just foot stomp that if you are discerning this sort of call toward ministry, know that it's very interesting, it's very exciting, it's exhilarating, but it's very humbling. And I'll say it this way. You have a church on every corner, especially here in Memphis, and people can pick their pastor, people can pick the place in which they fellowship, but oh, what a blessing when they pick the chaplain and they come to you with their faith, with their frustration, whatever they're going through. It's such a gift, and it reminds you that God has placed you in that space for such a time as this. So thank you for this opportunity. I know each and every one of us, we enjoy our ministry as chaplains. And if you don't necessarily want to be in the world's greatest Navy, but in the world's greatest Air Force, you can call 1-800-803-2452. That is the accession office for the United States Air Force Chaplain Corps. I actually had the pleasure of working with one of the chaplains that works there now, and it is just a privilege and an honor to serve in this capacity.
What was that number again, Chaplain Watkins? And of course, I'm going to have to give equal time. That means Garrett, you or Chaplain Jefferson are going to have to come up with a number.
Hey,
I'm number again, Chaplain Watkins.
I'm in Memphis, I'll take them on base.
You ready to say you can welcome right over?
What's the number, Chaplain Watkins? Don't y'all?
Chaplain Peters is right over there. Let me know. I got his number.
I mean, I'm at the 164th. So if anyone wants to join the Tennessee Air National Guard, you're more than welcome to call me. I'm also on staff at Memphis Theological Seminary. So it is a pleasure and an honor to serve in this capacity as well. But again, if you would like to join the world's greatest Air Force, you are more than welcome to dial 1-800-803-2452. I'll say it one more time. 1-800-803-2452. And because I am type B, I'm not type A or B, I'm type D. I actually had a PowerPoint presentation prepared where this was a slide, but I'll save you that. But do call us, really and truly. We're joking here, but we're people too, right? And we love what we do. We really and truly do.
What a blessing. No other phone numbers?
202-369-1258. And I will direct you personally to Chaplain
Robert. That sounds like a personal cell number.
No, it's not. It's my work cell here in Washington, D.C., and I'm in the nation's capital. So I'm here at the Chief of Chaplain's office that's right across the street from the Pentagon. Matter of fact, his home is where I work at the Washington Navy Yard. So who better to know than the Naval Support Activity Command Chaplain, Chaplain Jefferson, got the hookups. 1-800-202-369-1258.
Wonderful. We have had Dr. Lee Ramsey join us, who is our professor with pastoral care. Each of you would have worked with Dr. Ramsey, and I'm sure he probably has your contact information. And so our guest today, I know he's actually going to stay on and answer some questions, so they can reach out to him also. But welcome, Dr. Ramsey. You would be so proud of your students. I know you usually come on later, but you would be so proud. They have really represented today.
I could gather that for sure the past 10 or 15 minutes since I've been on and quietly in the background. Thank y'all all so much. Chaplain Jefferson, Chaplain Watkins, Burns, and Chaplain Smith. Chaplain Smith, I don't know if we've met before, but appreciate y'all all being here. And, this is really expanding the vision and the sense of potential call for our students. I am excited about them having y'all as personal contacts in the various branches of the service and reserves, if any of our folks want to reach out to them. And, I appreciated, Garrett, what you were saying about, counseling patients. And helping folks say, ministry is a long road, and we're never ever fully off of that road or completed. And anything, any kind of chaplaincy, as well as any kind of ordained ministry, has its own protocol and its own steps. And our students are, of course, eager to get on down the road, but I'm glad that they'll have y'all available to help shepherd them through the process if they want to take that next step. So thank you very much thank you for your service and for your ministries, all of y'all. Yeah.
And even with that, what I want to say is that the beauty is for our students and others who are interested is you are an example that it is possible. And clearly there is great diversity in the armed forces. That's a blessing. Chaplain Watkins already talked about how she had to shift from my denomination, but that's okay. Because the thing is that it looks like all are welcome. And we, again, appreciate you all for joining us. Dr. Ramsey usually dismisses and releases you all from his conversation, his follow-up conversation. So you are welcome to stay, but you are also welcome to go. Again, thank you all so much. We appreciate you. And we will be calling again because this was fun.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the interview. It's a humbling experience to be able to get back to my alma mater. So thank you so much. It means a lot.
Amen. Bless you.
All right. Thank y'all very much. Y'all take care here.
Do we have any questions for Dr. Ramsey? No? Well, Dr. Ramsey, this is the second day. You know what? It must be something about the noon hour.
No. These gals and guys are covering the waterfront. What else is there for me to say? Come on and take Intro to Pastoral Care, folks. That's where it all will start.
Someone, Fakisha just said there is a question about, I don't see it. Okay, she's putting it in the chat. But Dr. Ramsey, to your question about Chaplain Smith, he apparently, he started here at MTS and he's coming back. So hopefully he will make it back in the spring before you leave us.
All right. Well, look forward to seeing you around, John. Absolutely.
Do we have a question? What's the question? Just tell me. Okay, does the D-Men in Faith and Health have certifications that come with it?
Okay, so this isn't directly about military chaplaincy then?
No, this is a general question. And I know we will be talking about that on Friday.
Right. But the short answer to that is no, the D-Men in Faith and Health doesn't provide you full certification, but it gets you way down the road in terms of your academic preparation for seeking state licensure and certification as a pastoral counselor, or what the state of Tennessee actually calls pastoral therapist. But that would be additional work that you would begin while you're in the D-Men in Faith and Health and continue after graduation.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
No, I was asking Director Gunn, do we have any more questions? Well, that's it. Again, thank you all so much for joining us in the conversation. I am learning so much. I'm going to be qualified to be a chaplain by the time I finish all of these. But again, that is not my calling. So we thank you all. Have a great week. And we look forward to seeing you all on campus. Maybe we can have you all come and talk to some of the people. Have a great week.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.